Thanks for joining me tonight. How you doing, bud?
Dude, amazing, man. Thanks so much for having me. I know we had some technical difficulties, but we're good now.
Yeah, I think we're okay, but that's okay because that's what's good about being pre-recorded, right? We saved everybody the burden of all the troubleshooting.
It's true, bro. You guys didn't have to see any of that. Thank God. I had to run outside to my garage, reset this, reset that. So yeah, I think we're good now, hopefully, but we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, we're gonna find out. Yeah, man. So I'm just curious, since we've been, I've been starting this out, as with a couple other people, content creators, things of that nature. Wondering when, like, we're all collectors, right? I mean, obviously, look, what you have behind you.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, when were you always collecting, or did you just kind of start getting into it, or was there some gradual, like, when did you really start getting heavy into it?
Dude, it's such a good question. I feel like that's always a fun one to ask any hardcore collector like us. Like, when did you start collecting? What got you into it, right?
Right.
So for me, man, I actually started out doing cosplay. So I was doing cosplay, and it was actually, I know not everyone's going to be happy to hear this, but it was from The Force Awakens. So The Force Awakens is actually, like I said, what made me a really big Star Wars fan. So for me, I started doing cosplay for Kylo Ren. That's how I got into it. I started doing cosplay. I built these cosplays, that I would buy them. I didn't make them myself, but I would, like, it's not as easy as simply buying it off the rack, right?
Right, like Etsy people, or
yep, Etsy, all these other places, custom made everything. Every part's from a different maker essentially, so it's not like you're getting it from one person.
Right.
So yeah, like it's it's definitely a difficult process. Then eventually one day I was like, hey, what if, I think I was in one of the groups or something. I knew about Hot Toys, I knew what they were, but I'd never bought one because I was always like, why would I buy a Hot Toy when I could buy like a lightsaber or something like for the same price? Or buy a helmet or something, right? Or buy something for my costume that I can actually use. Then one day someone posted a Force Awakens Kylo Ren for $120 shipped. So, and I was like, you know what? I know that this figure is worth more than that, and I've never bought a Hot Toys before. Let's buy it and see how I feel about it, right?
Right, because it was so discounted.
And at one point, I was doing Marvel Legends before Hot Toys. Like, I think that's kind of the gradual thing for everybody. Like Marvel Legends and Black Series, you start out with something like that, and then you start getting a Hot Toy, and you're like, yeah, I need to sell all these.
Right, like you go up in scales. Like when I was a kid, it was the same thing. We had just like 3.75s, or you get into the Legends or the Black Series, and then you're like, whoa, what is this?
Exactly, man, exactly. So for me, that's kind of what it was. I got the Kylo Ren's figure, and funny enough, what I learned the hard way, some people don't have to, but I have to use stands on all my figures. My house kind of shakes a little bit when I walk through. I don't know if it's uneven or what the case is, but Kylo was actually not on a stand in the beginning, and he was up in my cabinet and on a glass shelf, right? And at that time, he fell off the cabinet, and his head broke off. So the head, it was a clean, it just fell off, basically, the neck peg, and the neck peg kind of snapped. So I had one of my friends fix it for me and repaired it, and it's good as new, basically. He's always my guy, Richard. So shout out to Richard. He fixes all my problems. So you need a friend like that, dude. You really do. You need a friend that's gonna like look out for you like that. But for sure, that's kind of how I got into it. Then once I got that one, I think the first figure I like bought like retail was Infinity War Thor.
Okay, so then you just were like, I'm gonna get some Marvel now that I have a Star Wars.
Because I was a big Marvel fan. I love Star Wars too, but I bought Infinity War Thor, and then that turned into Loki from Ragnarok, and Doctor Strange, and Darth Maul, and and everything else that happens along the way. So once you get one, it's like a potato chip. You can't only have one, right?
No, the floodgates open.
The floodgates are open at that point. So that's and I know you've probably felt the same thing or experienced the same thing. That's exactly how it happened. And then from there, you just kind of see everything that pops up, and then eventually you get a statue. I honestly can't even remember what my first statue was. It might have been Kylo Ren. I don't know, because I got the premium format Kylo Ren. I love that statue.
Well, now did you get the statues after Hot Toys, or was like the hot? So it's a steady. It's an incline.
Yep. Everything's a gateway, and then now. I got these Prime 1s and everything in Queen Studios. You can go from Hot Toys to Sideshow, then to Prime 1, and then, who knows what comes after that. So Queen Studios just did announce a Loki bus. So maybe that'll be
my next
that's
way coming.
Interrupting myself. Yeah.
That's coming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty
Jeez.
crazy. So yeah, man, it's a blast to be here. It's always fun to talk about these things and just experience like what collecting can bring in. The joy in people, what it can do for you. But yeah, man, it's a steady growth. Your collection's always going to change as you evolve.
Sure. Now, but now, like, so you're saying Force Awakens Kylo is the first Hot Toy. So that was 2017, I think.
Probably because the film came out in December of 15, right?
Yeah, so I'm just guessing the hour and a half type situation where, or not hour and a half, I'm sorry, like the year and a half situation where Hot Toys usually has like a 16-month gateway. So if it came out in like, 2015ish, then like early 2017 I think is where it would have came.
Exactly, for sure. Like you said, starting in 2016 and then 6 years later, right? I don't know how many Hot Toys figures I have at the moment, but it's a decent amount, right? So, yeah, man, it's pretty crazy how quickly it can evolve and sometimes spiral out of control, depending on who you ask. But, I think to a non-collector, all of us would seem a little bit crazy, but once you're in the game, I think everyone seems a little more reasonable and rational and, logical with their collecting. But short of that, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different beast altogether. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said it perfect. I mean, there's the outsiders, right? Friends, family, just the normal folk, right? We're not, so you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Right. So you're like, oh, I found there's others out there like me, and I can talk about it, and I can flaunt my collection, or you know what I mean, share, and people don't look at me like I'm crazy.
Right.
Because I think that's a big, I think that's where a community forms. I guess that works for anything, right? Any medium, I suppose, but it is, right? Because we have other people around that, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but like I don't talk to a lot of my friends, family about it. They don't get it. I'm like, oh, did you see that head sculpt? They're like, what? You know,
Yeah.
they just don't get it. They just don't get it. So
They don't. It's funny though. It is really nice when you have family members who do appreciate your collecting. Like, you have something and they're like, oh, that's really cool. Actually, like, I'm not big into collecting, but I'll like, they'll see something and they'll be like, yeah, like, I actually really like that. That's pretty damn cool. So that's always rewarding because you display things for your own happiness, but also when other people come over, you're like, oh, like you can impress, someone with how like classy your display looks. And like to a non-collector, they still can find enjoyment in it. And that's the best part.
oh yeah. That's one thing I'll say with Hot Toys versus like you had mentioned, like when we were younger or whatever, we would collect, and some still do, which is cool because you're like deep in it. But like going from like a 12th scale, or 3 3/4 scale, or the 12ths, like the blacks, like we mentioned, people see those and they're like, oh, okay, it's just they're like toys or something, right? And then they come over and they see like Hot Toys. I mean, I've had that too, like where they're totally not connected to this, but then they see it and they're like, that looks real, and they're really like,
right,
they're like blown away, right?
Yeah. It's definitely a different thing altogether, man, compared to like, that's why with Marvel Legends, for example, like if you have Marvel Legends or Black Series, nothing wrong with collecting those. It's just not the same level of realism, obviously. So when you have people come over your house and look at your collection, like having Hot Toys or Prime Ones or J&D or Queen, or whatever, that's within your means, like that's always something that's really cool that, can impress people, because it's not always about impressing other people. It's about your own happiness, but it is cool to get other people engaged with something you love too, to kind of bring them into your passion and bring them into your world. And that's what kind of makes it fun,
Well, yeah, it's just like anything. Like it's like if you watch they're like, this is my favorite television show or movie, and you tell your friend or family like, hey, you want to watch this? This is so cool. Like, it's similar in that respect. Like you want to, like you said, not necessarily impressed, but you want people to feel kind of what you feel, I think, from your passion or whatever it is, basically.
Right. Exactly. I totally agree, man. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know. It's always a rewarding feeling. Like when you get a situation where you just feel like, yeah, man, like I'm actually like other people are liking what I'm liking. And it doesn't always have to be that way, but it is reassuring and kind of nice. That's why part of why we do these live streams, to connect to like-minded people, right? So even when you get non-collectors find enjoyment in it, that's just like, that's cool, man. Cause it's kind of giving me, like reassurance, like, hey, I'm doing something pretty cool here. Right. And that's kind of, it's a nice reassurance every now and then. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, I totally do. And I think that's, and that's what kind of actually brings me kind of to my next question is that
Yeah.
when did you, like, because you create content, you have a channel, clearly, but that didn't happen right away, And even before then, you were already doing stuff on your channel, right? You were doing like
Right.
like movie reviews and things like that, and you still kind of do.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is like, is it just that you got to a point where you're like, okay, I have a lot of a collection here. I'm kind of in this. Maybe I want to start a channel to just share that, or I mean, like, what kind of made you decide to be like, you know what, I'm gonna start creating content,
Dude, that's always the $1 million question, I think, to any YouTuber. Like, what made you actually want to do YouTube?
Right.
Dude, honestly, for me, man, I felt like it was like 2016, I think, when I first started. I was doing movie reviews, and I was like, you know what? I go see a lot of movies. I was like, why don't I just start trying to talk about movies? I had these editing and skills anyway. I was doing photography, videography, things like that. I was like, why not try to explore that, right? Let's explore that a little bit and kind of see how it goes. So that's what I did. I just started doing them, started really enjoying it, finding a lot of fun and passion in it. So I was like, hey, let's explore that more. So I did a lot of movie reviews. I haven't done them in a while, honestly, probably because I probably burnt myself out on them a little too much. And also, like, I love doing the collecting. We collect things from the movies and the shows we love typically, right? So
Right.
that's kind of, I think it's a good connection. But the collecting stuff is kind of taking a little bit more of my attention in recent months, just because, I mean, for one, it's always really exciting. Like, there's always something new and exciting. And that can be said for movies too. But people have also kind of shown me with what they're watching that I put out that they prefer the collecting stuff usually. So it's always good to do both. Like, if you're ever considering making videos, anybody out there, like, do something that makes you passionate and happy. That's why I do the video essays, even though those don't always, it's not always about the views. It's about for the passion of it. But, I think it's good to listen to your audience too. Like, focus on, look at your analytics, see what they're telling you, what they want to see. It's the same way Hot Toys operates, right? They go off
Right.
market data and market information that they feel like they know have a pretty good idea what will sell, right? So they're going to make what we want to buy.
So initially then, like when you're doing your video essays and the reviews, you enjoyed doing them, but then just, you feel like, did you get burnt from it and then say, you know what, I have a channel already, I'm getting a little burnt, maybe since I'm familiar with, being on YouTube and creating videos, like you said, the experience with the photography and the editing, that now that you're comfortable on the platform already, you know what I'm saying? You're comfortable with yourself, that it was like, okay, maybe I'm burnt a little bit on the reviews, but I have the experience now of doing this as a content creator. Why not just start doing it with like collectibles, essentially?
Right. Well, to a degree, yeah. And what's interesting is because if anyone goes back and looks at the beginning of my channel, I think one of the first videos I ever did, the first couple, were actually collectibles. So I did a Saber Forge lightsaber, which is kind of like a Kylo Ren inspired lightsaber. I did that. Then I did like a Kylo Ren voice changer video.
I did see that. You actually had a lot of views on that.
Yeah, so I actually did pretty well. So that was just like me talking about, that was not intended to really be anything. Like, I was in the Kylo Ren cosplay community called Knights of Ren on Facebook. So it was a really big community. And I really just posted it for them. I never intended it for it to go out really to everyone else. And it just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, dude, that's the thing. Collectibles were always in my wheelhouse. It just was a matter of which ones I was getting. At that time, it was more so props and replicas and costume stuff. And then now it's more so figures. Like, I still do some costume stuff. I'm still working on that Din Djarin from season 1. So Mando. So I'm definitely gonna love doing that. But
Oh wait, you're doing a cosplay of that?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Din Djarin, the pre-Beskar Durasteel look. That's my favorite. So
Oh, okay. So like the OG Mando,
I love
for
that
those who
look,
are into
man. I
Hot
love
Toys.
that look. Yeah, that's my favorite. I just feel like I feel like that armor should have survived longer.
Yeah,
Because
it was like one episode, right?
Yeah, it had like 1 or 2 episodes. Yeah, it had
Yeah.
so much personality. Like, he got the Beskar too quickly, I think. Yeah,
Well, because he had that rugged leather cowboy look,
Right.
almost, like the Western that they're you know what I'm saying? I agree, because I think it was like midway in the second episode is when they melted down all the you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was very short. Well, that's gonna be now. Are you gonna do videos for that as well, since it's somewhat related to
I might. Yeah, I might. I don't know. Like because normally what I do, I'm in the 501st. So I don't know if I've ever told you about that. The 501st.
I did not know you were in there, but I am familiar with it. Well, can you explain that for those who don't know?
Yeah, yeah. So essentially what it is, it's a charity organization like that is essentially working with Lucasfilm to do charity events on, I guess sort of on not on behalf of them, but just sort of in cooperation with Lucasfilm. Like Lucasfilm just kind of lets it happen, in other words. They're just like,
Right.
okay, like you guys are actually building our brand and this is for charity anyway. You're not making money off of it. So they're fine with it, right? So essentially what it is you go through like an approval process. You have there's a garrison in each state for us US collectors. There's a garrison in each state. You have people and they have a CRL is what they call it, costume reference library. So they talked about every part of the costume that you need. It has to be pretty close to screen accurate. It doesn't always have to be exact, but pretty close. You have to be
It's pretty high,
good.
like in the 90s, right? 90
Right.
something
You have to be
percent
good to
accurate.
get in. So it took a while. Like, even when you go to get approved the first time, like it can take even a couple tries. Like they'll be like, hey, this is a little bit off. Like your belt is a little bit off. Something's a little bit off. You have to change
Right.
something. So that happened to me a couple of times. So I have Kylo Ren, Force Awakens, Kylo Ren, Starkiller Base from Force Awakens. And I have Darth Vader from A New Hope. And then I have Revan, Darth Revan. And then from KOTOR. And then I also have the Mando that I'm working on, which is still not done. So that I've kind of been taking my time on. I have
Wow,
like,
so
all the pieces. But
You have 4 approved outfits then.
yeah.
Okay, so you're pretty. All right. See, I didn't know you were part of the 501st.
Right.
Maybe a lot of people didn't also know. That's good because I'm familiar. I have a couple friends that are here, that are part of that. So
Right,
I think
right.
that's pretty dang cool then. Yeah. So so you already have the content though. Like you're creating stuff, you're doing hot toy stuff, collectibles, live streams. You could showcase some of those off at some point if you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So, and that's something I'll probably do at some point, but maybe just talk about the process of applying to the 501st and what it's like. And then maybe like if I could film a vlog type thing for an event, I would do that. But it's just when you're in costume, you can't really. So I'd have to have someone following me around. Which I could do, if I could get someone like a friend or something to film it and then while I'm doing it. So
That would be great.
But yeah, man, Darth Revan that's a really good one. Kylo's just always my favorite. So Darth Vader gets the most love, because Darth Vader. But
Right.
that one I always enjoy. Probably Kylo's always gonna have this. I have a soft spot for him because he got me into all of this basically. Like he's the one who got me into, cosplay, collecting, things like that, right? So that's definitely, a big aspect of why I love Kylo. And just I love the character in general, but Loki too. Loki would be the other character that I had a cosplay at one point with Loki, but it was kind of like just thrown together. Like it wasn't anything was super crazy about. But one day I'd love to do a legitimate Loki.
Like just sit down, get dedicated, and be like, I'm making a screen accurate. Like really take your time.
There's one maker on Etsy who makes these, and I talked to her for a while. She's incredible. She'll make it out of all real leather. All the parts are legit. Come with the helmet, everything. $5,000. So it's not cheap. But I can just tell you, if people want to do 501st, like my costumes and what it's probably going to cost you if you don't make it. Making it is really hard. If you buy it and it's all custom made, I mean, my Darth Vader was probably $4,000. I mean, like buying all.
Oh wow!
Parts.
Like when all said and done.
Because the lightsaber too, when you're looking at the lightsaber, that's probably $600 right there. So that's a big portion of it. So you got the helmet, that's another big portion. The armor pieces, the belt boxes that light up. It gets pricey after. There's a lot of parts to these costumes that I think a lot of people don't realize.
And especially because not very often can you buy a complete outfit, right? So you're buying from multiple vendors, basically, right?
Revan is the only one I ever did that for, besides the boots. I got the boots from somewhere else, but Revan, Wicked Armor makes Revan. He's awesome. He's like pretty much the only one who makes Revan. So, but he does amazing at it. So if anyone ever wants to do a Revan, Wicked Armor would be the place to go. He's on Etsy, and I think he has a website too. But he does amazing work. Yeah.
Damn. So all of this, that's crazy. So you were into doing the cosplay, getting into 501st, and because of all that, you stumbled upon a hot toy, seeing that it was cheap. You're like, wow, that's pretty cool. It's Kylo Ren. Yep. That's what I'm involved in, and so it's interesting. It went from there, and you're still obviously continuing, like you said. You're working on a 5th outfit now with Mando, but you went from that, and it just took off into collecting.
But this cosplay will probably be my last one in a while. Like I don't I don't foresee me doing another one in a long time just because of how pricey they are. It's hard
Yeah.
unless you're just made of money, which I am not, by the way. Let's show the record and let the record show. Like,
Right.
if you're gonna do
Me
these
neither.
statues and figures and shit, like then you really can't. It's hard to do cosplay too. It's really hard. That's why, and cosplay honestly takes a lot of work and time. It can be exhausting sometimes. So just because of how much you have to wait, like most of the times you're getting custom pieces, right? That could take 3 to 4 months for one part. I mean, that's like,
Right. That's not even the whole outfit. That's just a part.
just one part. And then if you're ordering it one time just to kind of get everything in a reasonable amount of time, then you're stacking up costs, and you combine that with statues and figures and whatever else, it gets dangerous. So that's why for me, the only other one would be Loki one day, and I would love to do a Sub-Zero. I would love to do a Sub-Zero from the movie. So I really like the character in the movie.
Like the new movie or the old school 90s?
Yep.
Okay. I haven't watched that yet.
See, I'm one of the, I mean, I feel like it was pretty divided. There were a lot of people who really liked it, a lot of people who didn't. So, I really enjoyed it though. And I can't wait because Prime One announced they are doing a Sub-Zero, and I know they're going to do a Scorpion from the movie. Those will probably be statues that I buy. Yeah. Because I know you probably do too. I have such a fond connection to those characters because of my childhood. Like Mortal Kombat. I remember getting Mortal Kombat on Sega Genesis for Christmas when I was like 7 or something.
Well, that's pretty dang interesting, man. Because I knew you cosplayed a little, but I didn't know you were going through the motions of the 501st and like, so you attend, like on, just as another personal like side hobby. You do attend the events then and with the other. See, that's really cool, man.
Yeah, it's fun. And with COVID going on, I haven't really been able to do as many of them as I would like. They still have them. One thing that happens to me too is I live in the country a little bit. So in Maryland, they cover the whole state. So a lot of them are kind of like the opposite side of the state as me. So I kind of have to be selective about where I go and when I do it.
It's a bit of a journey for you then, essentially.
So yeah, so that's the tricky part too. And dude, a lot of these costumes, they can be uncomfortable. I can say that.
Right.
So, it's funny just how hot they get. So, and if you're outside, say it's warm out that day, say like I've been outside as Kylo Ren in like 90-degree weather. So, it's pretty brutal.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, I'm here in Phoenix, and that's the same. Like we'd go to Comic-Cons and things like that, and they always have it in the middle of summer here, and I don't know why. And it's like 115 degrees outside, and I see Darth Vader's walking around, and I'm like, dude, there's no way. You kidding me? I can't do that. So I totally get that. But you're right about the COVID thing, right? Because everything's been on lock forever. There's less and less events or less time. You know what I mean? So do you think that had a factor in your content, like creating process, for example, because you have extra time, you're not devoting as much to doing the events that you could focus. Like, did you know what I'm saying? Did you start to be like, okay, I have extra time. I'm really going to focus into this now.
Right. Yeah, I did at one point, like with YouTube now, I do the live streams and stuff with all you guys because it's always a blast to do and it's a lot of fun. But for me, it's kind of like a more semi-casual thing at this point. Like I don't even make that many of my own videos besides live streams because I don't know, like I don't know, everyone's different, but I kind of like balance in my life. Like, I like to, that's something I always preach, right? Like I always preach the idea of balance, but if it's not for everyone, some people want to go all in on something and that's kind of how you be successful at it.
That's true.
You go all in on it and you really just pour your heart and soul into it. So not saying I don't do that, but I also try to balance it and do other things. Like I play piano and guitar and things like that and work out and, do other stuff and watch sports and go see the movies and things like that. Don't have to review everything because the second it starts to feel like an obligation, like it will become that, like it'll become, and you won't want to do it anymore.
That is true. That is true. It really starts to feel like, well, obviously it is work. There's a lot of work that goes into all of this. I know a lot of people may not think so. Some people think that you just kind of go live and there you are, but it's not, right? I mean, for example, you're saying you've been strictly, for the most part, doing live streams, but it's not like you click a button and you're live, right? There's work that's involved in it. So what do you, because I do it too, and we have friends that also do it, but we all do different things. So when you decided that, hey, you know what, I'm going to do live streams, I'm going to have a panel, we're going to talk about things, you come up with interesting topics, or sometimes you You even do these presentations. Like where did all this where's that come from? Like where did you get this, like your creative process? How were you like, you know what? I'm just gonna create a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation. Like where'd that come from?
Well, dude, honestly, the PowerPoint thing came from Lael told me at one point, like when he was starting to do his show, like it was when he was just starting out, I was like, bro, I'm with you. I'll be there every time. Like I'm going to be there. Right. So he told me, he was like, I want to give you your own segment. And I was like, okay. But what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do? And
Like, what does this mean?
yeah, he was like, I was like, what do you want me to do with it? Like, do you want it to be like something about collecting budget or what is it? He was like, dude, whatever you want. He's like, I don't care really. He's whatever you want. And I was like, that's so open-ended. So what I was like, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create a PowerPoint and then give a presentation. Because I've been a teacher. I've done that for a while. So I was like, I know PowerPoint, right? I know how to give a presentation off of PowerPoint. And I've done that a bunch in school and other things. So I was like, why not, right? So I did that, and just called on. And now it's funny because I used to do them weekly, and that was very difficult because I was like, man, it takes more time than people think to make those. Because they seem pretty simple on face value, but you kind of have to make them informative and also funny, right?
Right, and they have to flow like together very well.
Because if it's not really funny, it can just be boring. So that's the hard part. It really does take some time to think about what you're gonna say. Not like I have to come up with all these crazy jokes and this and that, but I do have to make it kind of engaging and funny and lighthearted. So I try to
Right,
do
and
that,
reflective to whatever topic.
yeah, and dude, honestly, with the live stream topics, like sometimes I come up with those a few days before. Sometimes it's a week before. Like if I just usually it's like something happens, right? Something happens, and then you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, that is actually something that inspired a topic. Like, what if we talked about this, right? And that's
Right.
kind of cool. And that's usually what happens. Like something I'll see comments in the community, people chatting back and forth or debating about something, or I'll see someone's video where they mention something. I'm like, what if we talked about this topic that they're kind of not addressed, they're overlooking? That's kind of what I'll go into. And also I just try to do something different. I know you do too. Like,
Yeah.
it's great to talk about the releases. We all do that. Like I hit that first, but then I'm like, hey, let's talk about big picture topics. Like let's talk about like big picture things that you don't want to do that all the time, but budgeting, payment plans, where you pre-order from, do you pre-order at all? Like those type of things. Like what should we do about overwhelming our space, things like that. Those are the kind of things I like talking about because they help everybody, I think, because then they make you be more thoughtful and knowledgeable about what you're doing.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's also another reason why people are probably tuning in right now, listening to us, because it's there's some informative things there, things that like you said, like we can talk about the new, like, oh, this figure just came out. Okay, well, sure, we can touch on that for a little bit, but I think a lot of people and make no mistake, as I'm sure you can agree, the this community of collecting is growing. There's new people every day. So, and some are buying in, or coming in, I should say, and they have no idea like what to, where can I get these, or how much does this usually cost, or how do I budget into this, or how do you display them, or how do you take care, you know what I'm saying? Like, right. So those are all very relevant topics, I think, that should be discussed. Yeah. So I totally see where you want to go in, in that, because it's cool to, like you said, to talk about the figures themselves, but that's just a very small fraction of what is in the collecting world in itself, right?
Right. I think so. I mean, I think there's so much like bigger picture stuff that's important to talk about because the figures are only one aspect of it, right? Like
right, of course.
One small aspect of it. And then the rest of it, like, that's so important to talk about, I think is just, important to share our experience with people. Like, I've made mistakes. Like, I've bought too much. I've gone over my budget. Like, I've gotten to a situation where I have too many pre-orders. And then that's always a thing where I try to look back at that and say, like, hey, why have I done this? Like, what can I do to prevent this in the future? What can I tell other people that maybe they won't do this themselves? Like, things like that. Like, you don't always have to listen to what I say, just as long as it kind of gets you thinking about what you're doing yourself, so you can maybe learn from my mistake. And that's kind of like how like a lot of people view it, right? It's focusing on what you can learn from other people's failures or mistakes, right? Like, I told everyone I had never created an Excel doc before. Like, what, it was like less than a year ago, right? And I was in a situation where I like, all right, let's just optical convince him. He's like, create an Excel doc, dude. Let's see what happens. So I was like, okay, let's do it. Created one, and I was like, well, in over my head. So, and it's easy to do because you can drop NRDs like it's candy. Like you'd be like, oh, $25, $25, it's fine.
Right.
$40, it's fine.
Before you know, that's 400.
Right. And then you look at it and you're like, wow, I have like 15, because I had $15,000 in pre-orders over the next 2 years. Right. Went and canceled a bunch of stuff. And then even then I was like, all right, I'm still at like, I trimmed the fat to a point where I was like, I still want all of this stuff though. Like I trimmed it to what I felt like I really, really wanted. And then I was
like down to the absolute, like these are definitely what I want.
Statues on there. So I was like, I'm still at like 12,000. It's still a lot, right? A lot of money. I make a middle class salary. I'm not rich. Like I work in education, so I don't make a lot of money. And then what happened was I started paying that stuff off immediately. Like instead of buying new things, which I bought small things here and there, I'd be like, all right, let's pay this off. Let's pay this off. Let's initiate these payments now. Get this out of the way. And then I trimmed some more fat. I was like, hey, let's trim it even further. What do I really not need? You don't need any of it, but what do I really not really, really, really want?
Right, out of the whole pile of what's owed.
Out of the whole pile of things that I really want. And now my number is like below 4,000. I've got it down that much. So
oh wow.
Yeah, like I've paid off a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff in advance. That's why like now I'm getting all this stuff in because I paid it off already. I paid it off well in advance, and like Kratos and all these other figures like that are just, and the statues like Revan, like things like that. The second Pennywise I just got. I paid all that stuff off. So, like that's why, like, honestly, I don't always buy from Sideshow, but it is nice that you can pay things off whenever you want. So
that is true. And it's just like any other bill, if you treat it as such and be like, well, okay, so what's the lowest, bill? And that bill being a figure or a statue, you're like, okay, well, I only owe like $120 on this figure left. Let's just pay it off. It's the lowest one. And then let's tackle the next low. You know what I'm saying? And then you kind of whittle down what you were saying. And then all of a sudden you get this surge of collectibles in because you're just focusing more on trying to break down the total net that you owe, that's great advice in general. See, a lot of people don't, like you said, you get carried away with these, these deposits. Oh, I can put this down. I can put this down. And before you know it, you're neck deep, and getting charged every week, seemingly, sometimes twice, just on some type of order that you have extended out. So that could be very dangerous very quickly.
Yeah, I think it definitely can. So that's part of why, I always feel like it's so important to exercise caution. And that's why with Hot Toys nowadays, if you're out of the States, I understand because it's a little bit different. The buying experience is different, right?
Right.
But if you're in the States right now, in my opinion, there's not really much incentive to pre-ordering. I think you're actually hurting yourself by pre-ordering because you're basically shackling yourself and saying, I'm locked into this purchase, especially if you're putting a 20% NRD down.
Right.
Which is what a lot of companies will charge nowadays. So these smaller retailers, right? Like I know others like Comic Concepts will charge 20%. Some of the others I've seen will charge 20%. That's 20% NRD, non-refundable. So if you change your mind later, that figure is not going to sell out before it hits, in stock. Usually like 95% of the time. Like there's a rare Venom or Heavy Mando or something like that sells out. Other than that though, man, I'd say just wait. Like, for example, this Doc Ock, hey, just wait. If the sculpt ends up being terrible when it comes out, just don't buy it.
Right, that's true. And then and you have a year and a half, right? Usually. I mean, we're talking Hot Toys here, right? So you do have quite a long time to decide. So pre-ordering, whether you like it or not, right? Like you're saying for the Doc Ock, for example, if you're not really happy with it yet, wait till final product. But in most cases, everything's good. So let's just assume the release or the announcement looks great. You still have a year and a half. There's no need to jump the gun and drop this non-refundable deposit, especially if they drop 4 figures in a month and you're like, I must have these. And now you're in it. And maybe a year from now, maybe you don't want them, or maybe something happens in life and you can't afford it and you have to break those non-refundables. And now you just lost, $100-something.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point with it. There's always so many factors involved, but it's just when you start talking about money, it's so important to think about that stuff when you're buying these things. And like I said, learn from my experience. Like I've gotten overwhelmed, and you know, to the point where I'm like, hey, like I've got to sell some stuff. Like I got to sell some stuff to buy this other stuff I need. Like using your collection to fund your collection, I think is always so important. Right?
Well,
That's
now
always
did I'm sorry, but did you
No, go ahead.
do that like when you had, like, for example, when you got into Hot Toys? Did you already? You said you had like older, like Legends or Black Series, those figures. Did you end up selling all that stuff off?
Most of them. I still have some Black Series in my room. It's very consolidated. I have like maybe like Black Series and Marvel Legends, maybe 10, 12. Like I don't have
Okay.
many. But it's things like I couldn't get elsewhere at the time, like Proxima Midnight and Ebony Maw and Revan and Nihilus and things like that, right? Because I knew I couldn't really get those in another form at the time. So wouldn't be opposed to selling them at some point, but honestly, they're worth so little, it's almost not worth it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because if I sell Proxima on eBay, right, loose, I might get $15 after shipping, like, and then eBay taxes. I'm probably netting $5. Like, yeah, it's something, but the time it takes to go to the store and ship it and pack it up, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm netting something. If I sell them all in one big pile, that's different. Like if I sell them all in one big sale and say, okay, you're buying this lot of figures, that might be worth it. But to some people, the Nihilus I've seen is pretty high right now. So, he's I think he was like $25 retail. He's like maybe 50 now.
Now, was that a Black Series?
Black Series, yeah.
Okay, because I actually have a Nihilus, but he's at 3.75.
Oh, okay.
And I have him loose because he came in like a 2 or 3 pack years ago. And I just opened it because I wanted a Nihilus on my desk. And then,
now he's worth something. Well, I would think
Yeah.
that XM is probably going to tackle him next. That would be my guess.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Because they did Revan and Malik. Why not do Nihilus?
That is true. That is true. For those, like, not in the know, those are the quarter scale statues.
Exactly. XM Studios quarter scale Revan, which I have right over there, actually. It's funny. He looks great, but he's standing next to Thanos. Thanos is like towering over him. Thanos is like twice as big. So
that's cool, though. I mean, so you're in a wide variety of collectibles. Then you get the Hot Toys, so 6 scale. Maybe you dabble a little in third party as well, but still in the 6 scale. And then you have the statue. So you've really been kind of, it's like a hodgepodge of all, like, basically if you like it, it doesn't matter the scale, essentially.
Right. If I really like it, I'm probably going to end up getting it. I mean, I have 1-to-1 helmets. I have 1/3 scale, half scale, quarter scale, 6 scale, 1/10 scale, 1/8 scale even. So, I have the, just got the last one I needed. The 𝕄𝔸𝐿𝐼𝐻. I don't know if you've ever seen, Anthony, Attack on Titan.
I have not.
Anime. So it's really good. It's in its final season now. And it's fantastic. 𝕄𝔸𝐿𝐼𝐻 makes these statues. They're 1/8 scale. They're about $100 a piece, 115 or something. And they're fantastic. Really good quality. So I have those. Those are 1/8 scale. I have a Black Order in Iron Studios 10 scale. So to me, it's more about the quality of the piece, not necessarily the scale. Like you can see in this room right now, I have Balder and Kratos quarter scale, also Prime 1 Joker 3rd scale right over across from him. So I have no problem mixing scales. When you display them, it obviously tends to look better when you have a consistent scale, but it can still work.
Well, it depends. You can set it. You know what I mean? I've seen some mixed scales that look really, really good together. But I understand for the most part, right? If it's like all like one scale, it's all uniform. But I mean, there's times where I've seen 6 scale figures, like let's say Star Wars, and then on the shelf next to it, it's 3.75 inch, but they're more of like a almost like a diorama because they'll have a large vehicle with them, and it's kind of like a battle scene. So it's scaled outward to give you that, because you can't make that. That's too big in 6 scale. But when you mix it and it's themed, you're like, oh, well, this is all Star Wars. This looks really cool together. Or like kind of like how you have helmets, there. Those helmets are 1/1, but they fit. Or some of these statues will fit, But it's yeah, I see what you mean though. Like universally, it's nice if it's all like the same. But you can mix. I think you can mix if you. Again, that kind of goes back to what you're saying though. Like because of the Hot Toys or statues, the quality is that there's that level of class. So you want to display them as such, right? So if you can make a classy display, it's gonna look phenomenal. People come in and they're like, "Whoa, what is this? This looks great."
Right, absolutely. So And that's for sure, man, what I think. Like, I have the half scale Pennywise, right? So I have that and I absolutely love it because it's funny with statues, that's definitely a gateway thing.
You think so?
With collecting too, like this, Anthony, when you collect at the time before you buy your first one of something, you're like, that price is ridiculous. I would never pay that for that item, right?
Right.
That's what happened before you bought your first hot toy. I bet we all said that. We were like, $300 for an action figure? Nah.
Yeah.
Right?
When you're used to paying $5, $10, $20.
Right. And when I bought that first hot toy, everything changed because then you buy it, especially for $120. But when you buy it for $250, for example, you're like, this is really nice. And I kind of think it's worth it. So that's what happens with statues too. When I bought Pennywise originally was like, I talked to friends and people. It was kind of a joke. I was like, I really want this Pennywise thing, but it's $2,000. I was like, it's too much money. I'm not going to get it, blah, blah. I was like, I'm not going to get it. Then one day I was like, you know what? F it. I'm getting it. And then it's $2,000. So I just dropped it. That was the most money I've ever spent on anything. And I was like, let's just pay it. And the shipping was like $300. It was like $2,300 out the door, right? It's not cheap. That's probably the most expensive thing I've ever bought. Besides like a computer, like a Mac or something. But
right. But as like something that doesn't serve any,
like it has no practical purpose.
Right.
Like it just at all. That's it.
It can creep people out. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah.
Which is a win. It keeps intruders away.
Oh yeah. So. No, that's a win.
Yeah. So, but for sure, man. Like when you get into that stuff, for sure. That's why statues can be a dangerous game because once you get them, and like I said, they just have such a presence, man. Hot toys do too, but bigger is kind of better. Like in my experience, like if you have a bigger, doesn't always mean better quality necessarily, but if it is better quality, it is a better overall experience, right? So to me, yeah, it's just statues are just incredible. I love my hot toys. So I have more hot toys than I have statues, obviously, because statues take up way too much space and money.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, hot toys are still expensive, no doubt, but they take up much less real estate and less of your bank account. So
true. Well, did you feel the same way then with that half scale Pennywise? That's your first big statue. Is that the same feeling that you had gotten when you got your first hot toy?
Yeah, I think so.
Where you're like, there's no way I'm going to buy this. And then you did. And you're like, well, okay, actually that was worth it.
Right. Exactly, man. And it's just one of those things where like, it just becomes worth it. And it's funny. I don't know if people will be able to find this. This 𝕑𝐷𝑒r I have back here is 1/4 scale, right? This is one of my favorite pieces in my entire collection. Like, I think it might be second, like, or first even. Like, it's right
really. Is it because you're a big fan of God of War, or is it just the piece?
But it's like God of War is not on like Last of Us level to me or anything, but it's still just incredible. I love it. I just honestly, man, I love 𝕑𝐷𝑒r as a character, and this statue is just perfection. Like they could not have nailed it more than they did.
Wow.
Just as an art piece, it's one of the most incredible art pieces I've ever seen. Like that, and the Sauron I just got is also incredible. That one's
and
insane.
that one's pretty big too, right?
1/4 scale, and it's massive.
Okay, it is 1/4, but it's just massive because it's Sauron, so he's towering and like.
But for sure, man, those type of things, man, you can get in deep with that stuff because like but 𝕑𝐷𝑒r, for example, the point I was going to make with that was he was $1,200, right, when he was retailed. And I originally saw him and I didn't know the price originally. And I was like, oh, I really want that. And then I saw it was $1,200 and I was like, damn it, Prime One. Like that's overpriced. That's overpriced. And then the more I saw it, and I was like, hey, maybe if it's overpriced, let's give it a shot. Let's see how it comes out. And then I bought it. And then I ended up getting it. And I was like, hey, I think this is worth it. When you see how much goes into that base and how much goes into 𝕑𝐷𝑒r himself with the tattoos and the beard and everything in between, it's just
very detailed.
Yeah, right. Like you think it's crazy and the price is astronomical until you see what goes into it. And then you're like, I kind of get it now.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of how I was with those Mortal Kombat statues because they were like the classic versions, but they had multiple sculpts, multiple hands, different accessories. And then their clothing was the real cloth. I mean, it was very well tailored. They were insane. And I was like, and I thought I was insane for buying them.
Yeah.
Right. And then I got them and I was like, dude, okay, this is like really, you want to talk about shelf presence. It's more like room presence. You know what I mean? The whole, your eyes focus to that. And you're like, I can't believe the detail that I'm looking at right now in person. It's different when you look at photos, right? You're like, oh, that looks cool. And then you get it in hand, you're like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
Different beast altogether. It really
altogether.
Is. Yeah. It's pretty crazy, man. And those are the type of things I think when that's what it can be dangerous because, like I said, once you get into those other pieces, that's when you're like, hey, I'm in this deep, right? So,
Right.
but I always caution people too, man. Like with collecting, it can be like anything, right? It can be anything can become a drug. So like
True.
anything can become anything. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. It is true. It can happen.
Oh yeah.
So we all do it. I think at this point, all of us, anyone who's watching this stream or listening to this on Spotify or wherever, we're in this. So like we are addicted to a degree, right? Like we all sort of chase, I think, that serotonin kick that we're getting from buying something new, right?
That's true. Yeah.
I think some of us sometimes will even log on and be like, I want to buy something, right?
Yeah,
Like,
just to buy it. You're like in
yeah.
that kind of
You're in that phase. I haven't gotten anything in a month, right? I want to buy something.
right.
And
You're
that's
kind of
fine.
chasing a
Trick
dragon.
yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true.
So, but it is definitely a thing. And like, that's something I think we always need to be cognizant of because sometimes it happens to me, sometimes need to take a step back and be like, hey, let's think about it. You know, do I really want this? Is this something I'm
Right. Do I
sell?
really?
Right.
Now, do you feel that as a content creator, or let's say, more importantly, you live stream.
Yeah.
So it's not just like you're putting out a review or something that's just your opinion, but because you're engaging with a panel and speaking to the community, do you feel that you have like a responsibility there as well to say, hey, I've made some mistakes. I know how quickly you can, get involved in making these purchases. Like you said, it is kind of an addiction. You feel like there's like some integrity there when you do live stream and speak to people, that you don't want to be like, this is the greatest thing ever, you must buy this immediate. You know what I'm saying? Like that factors into your process when you start streaming and speaking with people.
Yeah, it does. I think the biggest responsibility of anyone who goes into a live stream that wants to give an opinion that people could listen to, no matter how big or how small the channel, I think your main responsibility is honesty, right? Because the second you start lying to people and then, not acting out or believing what you say, that's where I think it becomes a problem, right? Because then you're in a situation where the integrity comes into question because it becomes a matter of, can I believe what you're telling me? Or are there other reasons,
Sure,
that you're telling me this? Like, so that's kind of the stuff that can factor into it, in my opinion. So for me, I always want to be honest. That's like, whether it'll get me in trouble or whether I'll have an unpopular opinion, that's fine, because as long as you can live with yourself and, are fine to, be honest.
Yeah, you have honor and integrity, and that's all that really matters at the end of the, you know what I mean?
That's important, but to each their own. Like everyone has their own thing, but that's just kind of how I view it. I think the biggest responsibility is to be honest with people, not to protect people, because I think everyone has to do that for themselves, right?
Right. We're all grown-ups here. Like we have to be responsible.
Themselves, right? So I would say yes, that's something every collector has to determine for themselves, what they need to do, what's best for them. But you can always listen to other people too and take advice, like whether you enact on that advice and act into your own strategies is something different. But I feel you have an responsibility to just be yourself, not to be anyone but yourself, not to be a caricature, for example, unless you want to, and that's kind of your thing. That's fine, I guess. But I like being myself. Like who I am on the stream is who I am off the stream. So
exactly. Like that's exactly how I am, and I know what you mean. Like the caricature, like where you have some people, and it may not even be in collecting community, but just in general, right? There's a YouTube personality, and then that personality only exists on that platform, and then off camera or off microphone, they're not that person, right?
Right.
And that's I see what you're saying. So honesty is extremely important, and the transparency. Like, and I agree with what you're saying. Like, people are responsible for their own finances, right? But being able to listen to someone who's giving you an honest opinion on things, and from multiple sources, even, right? You have multiple sources, whether there's multiple streamers or multiple reviews or something that you're looking into, possibly considering buying. It's best to the more opinions you have, the better informed that you are before you make that purchasing decision.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my opinion on it. Like, I think it's so important to listen to as many voices as possible and then make your own determination. Because I think what can happen in collecting, and then in any realm really, right? they're always going to be influencers, right? People who influence opinions or influence purchasing habits or influence, whatever the case may be. So for me, I think it's important to listen to those things, but also again to sort of understand that you buying into FOMO is a thing. We all do it, all of
Right.
us. Like we all do it to a degree. That's why we're in these communities. We see each other get stuff, and we're like, oh man, I kind of want that now because Anthony got it, right?
Right.
We all do it. So I think the hardest part is recognizing that you're never going to completely stop it, but you get to the point where you're like, okay, like I can recognize this is happening and sometimes get away from it,
Mm.
like, and because trust me, like, we've all been there. Like buying more stuff doesn't always bring you more happiness, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
we've always felt that, like, like all of us, like there's always things that I think all of us deal with. All of us deal most of us anyway, sometimes deal with depression or deal with anxiety or fears or insecurities, whatever. Right. And those kind of things,
Absolutely.
like, that's never going to go away completely just by getting something new. But the collecting community is really good for helping those things because we help each other feel unified and together. Like there's a community for all of us, even though we're like, I know like one person in real life that I could talk to this stuff about with, like one of my
Right,
friends that I
same.
mentioned. Yeah. Like that really would want, like my brother is into this stuff kind of, he'll talk to me about it. But like one of my friends, Richard, like I said, is really big into collecting. He's like the one guy that I could probably talk to about this endlessly. Right. So besides you guys who I stream with all the time or the people in the chat, right? That's why we're all here, because the sense of community.
And it helps. I think you bring up an interesting point with whether people have, some forms of depression or anxiety, and so on. Like it's difficult in that respect because a lot of people may not feel connected, right? They feel alone, or they, is this just happening to me? Am I the only person? Like, what is wrong with me? Well, there's nothing wrong with you, but
No.
that's how it can feel. And then when you have a community you just happen to be into, that kind of gives you a sense of belonging. And I think that's where you're saying a lot of this inherent like FOMO comes, and like, oh, this person really got this and I'm involved in this community, I should get it too.
Right.
And and that's difficult. And I've always been a firm believer that there's a difference between happiness and joy, right? Where I think happiness is something that's kind of, it's the quick fix, right? It's whether you're saying the endorphin really, hey, I purchased this figure, or I ate something that, I really wanted to eat, like comfort food or something like that, right? But then that fades. And then the more you do that, and particularly in this hobby, the less the effects have on you, right? You almost build up a tolerance to that when you're trying to chase something that makes you feel good. And you can be 100 figures deep and you're like, I don't feel really that what I felt from the first figure, whereas with joy is like you're just happy with life, period. You can look around at your long-term achievements, and I get that like not everybody has that. So it can confuse you, or your psyche, where you're like, wait a minute, what am I getting this because it's making me feel good as like a Band-Aid, or am I really involved? Or and that's a hard situation to be in, I think. And having a community here, like you said, is like, it's almost like a support group.
Yeah, but it's also like, it's a support group, but it can also be like an enable group. So
that is also true.
Yeah, so it's more often a support group than an enable group, but I think we all enable each other to a degree, because even if like, because we could give our honest perspective on a figure, right? If someone, but like, say for example, like I go on here, right, and I'm just like, hey, this Pennywise is absolutely incredible. I'm sure there was someone who watched that was probably not going to get Pennywise that saw that and was like, hey, maybe I should take a second look at that. Ended up buying Pennywise, right?
True.
I'm sure that happened. It's an unintended side effect, but it does happen. So, hopefully they're happy with that figure. But that's always my, thing where I just encourage people to, listen to people's opinions, but also like formulate your own. Hopefully, in an ideal world, I would say, okay, this Pennywise is fantastic and you should consider getting it. And if they got it, they love it. So, and if they don't, I guess they'll sell it. But hopefully that's the type of impact that all of us can have on each other, where like we can influence each other, but everyone can make up their own determination.
Right. We're not like trying to say you have to go buy this right now. And here's like that's I think the difference between being passionate about something and valuing another person's opinion versus, you know, an actual influencer. I think that word gets thrown around a lot, and that's not necessarily the case with most people. There's only really a couple influencers out there I would say in this field, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, I'm being paid somehow, or I'm monetarily benefiting through a company or something along those lines, where everything seems amazing no matter what, right? And then some of that's very entertaining to watch, and it really gives you that flair and that pizzazz. You're like, wow, that looks so great. Yes, I'm gonna buy this figure, right? And that's okay. There's a place for that. But I feel like people get confused sometimes and say, well, everybody must be an influencer, where it's like, no, I think, you know, we were passionate. We have opinions. We're not, you know, beholden to one company or any company for that matter. No one's, you know what I'm saying? It's just, we enjoy it. And it's sometimes you got to be mindful of that, right? I feel like that sometimes, right? Where I'm like, well, okay, like you said, with you're talking about Pennywise. Oh, maybe someone who didn't want that's now going to buy that. Well, I'm assuming that their bases are covered. They're not going to go into debt because of something that I had said, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, like I said, when it boils down to it, is being able to having the autonomy to make your own decisions, your own purchasing decisions. So,
oh, absolutely.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, like, you know, with influencing, yeah, I guess you could term it as anyone who influences, but I mean, I don't know if you wanted to be, you know, a simplistic definition, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that factors into it. It's just, I understand too, these are uncomfortable topics for everyone. Like, these are not something that everyone always wants to address, right? Because they are, like, you have to address your own, you know, possibly like things that are being overlooked, right? Factors into the purchasing decision, because it feels good to always just buy something, right? It feels good to just not have to worry and click purchase, pre-order, buy, right? Buy it now, right? Feels great. But then sometimes you get that regret, like what do they call it? I don't know if this is a PG podcast, but
no, this is uncensored, clarity, man.
Right. So, you know, they describe that. So that's like something that for sure, it's the same kind of deal with buying, purchase after purchase clarity or something, right? Where like,
right, or like buyer's remorse or something along those lines.
Where you get that after you get it, or, you know, usually once you get it in hand, you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. I really like this, but then give it 2 or 3 weeks. Like,
right.
That immediate serotonin kick starts to wear off. Like, you're just like, okay, I never really wanted that. Happened with me, for example. It happened with the Mark 47. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, because someone was selling the Mark 47, the original, after it got reissued for $250 shipped, and it was such a good deal that I was like, I can't pass on that, even though I don't really want this figure. Like, I never really cared for the Mark 47. So, and then I was like, okay, let's buy it, and I got it in hand and really liked it in hand. I was like, this is a really good figure, actually. I like this suit. But then I had it for about a month, and I was like, but I just don't care about the Mark 47. You know what I mean? So,
right. So you kind of just picked it up because the deal was like a really great deal.
And that's sometimes where I try to caution people to be careful with that, because yes, you don't want to miss out on a good deal, but is it a deal that you really can afford to not miss out on? Like, it's, do you really want that item? Because I think we all fall in that trap. That's how, not just collecting, all of us, in everything, right? We buy something on Black Friday or Prime Day or whatever. We never really wanted it. It's just a good deal, so we feel like we should buy it.
You're like, oh, this blender's $100 off today.
It's like, I've never blended anything in my entire life.
But I'm going to buy it because it's $100 off, and maybe I'll make a smoothie tonight or something, right? Like, you're just...
And then you'll get it and never use it.
Yeah.
So that's my thing, man. It just, I think we just have to be careful with that stuff. That's my, but, you know, and like I said, like, that's why I think this community is really good, because we're all really understanding of everyone's differences. And yeah, there's some drama that goes on every time, but that's every community, man. It is. It's every single community. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, it's collecting or Game of Thrones or Star Wars
even, come on. Like, that's, you know,
you like the Saints and you're on the Saints forums on Reddit, like, it's the same. I mean, like, there's always going to be division in some way, but, you know, if as long as we can all come together and recognize our love for the figures, what keeps us here, then that's kind of the goal.
Well, and that's really why I kind of bring it up because you know, we are content creators, and I feel like I really feel like as a, you know, we're out there exposing ourselves and our views and opinions to the world, or whoever's, you know, wanting to listen to us, you know, whether they, you know, they like us or they just want the, you know, something informative, you know, instructional, or maybe just entertainment, you know. Either way, I feel like once you put yourselves out there, yeah, sure, we're collectors first, but, you know, as a content creator, I feel like our opinions have a responsibility. They have weight to them. It's one thing when you read a post on Reddit and someone's saying, oh, you know, something about this figure. Okay, you just, you know, you read it and it gets kind of lost in a comment. But being out there and speaking to the community, I feel like there is a responsibility there, like you said, to just be yourself and be honest about it, and who you are on camera is who you are off camera, and to allow people to, you know, listen to you, but don't take your word as scripture, right? Because you may love this figure and I may hate this figure. Now what? We're both out there speaking about this. None of us are right. You know what I mean? It's just our opinion, and neither of us are saying go out, pick this up right now, right? You know, like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you saw it, like, what was it, on your stream, like, what, earlier this week or last week when ℚ𝐸𝐻 dropped, right?
Oh yeah.
When 𝐿 and I were just like, oh, I don't love it. I definitely don't love it. I think it's good, but I think it's, the head sculpt's obviously not great, and 𝐿 thinks it's terrible, right? So we were kind of having a discussion about that, and by the end of it, we both walk away like, cool, we're good, like, right? There's healthy disagreement in this stuff, right? Like, as long as by the end of the day you walk away from the conversation and you say like, hey, we're both comfortable in our own skin, and say we can disagree. Because anytime everyone agrees, it's never that exciting, right? It's never that engaging, because it's just kind of like, yeah, it's just everyone just kind of like agreeing and circling.
Exactly.
Right. So that's kind of the part of it too, where it's a little more engaging when you have that back and forth. Like, that's why those talk shows, like all those sports shows, like First Take and Undisputed, they work so well, because they're
polarizing opinions.
Yeah, like you're seeing live interactions and disagreements, and it's exciting to us. So if they just sit there and agree with each other all day, it's kind of like, this isn't that fun. So
right.
Why do people love reality television, right?
Oh God, yes, it's very,
love it because they know that it's, you know, it's drama.
It is, and most of it's staged. But, you know,
it
for us at least, it's literally unscripted. We get on, we have our opinions, and you're right. Civil discourse is super important, regardless of the medium. I think even especially now, just today in the world, we need civil discourse. We need to be able to communicate with each other and have, you know, completely polarizing opinions, and be able to be like, oh, okay, well, you don't, okay, why do you feel that way? Well, thank you for informing me. Maybe it changed my mind, or maybe I changed your mind, or we can, you know, come to an agreement, or we can agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we're still, you know, we still respect one another. And I think that's super important. And I think that's very reflective with the community in general. I mean, most everybody is very, like you said, we get into these sometimes heated debates, but at the end of the day, everything's cool, you know, and that's very important to have.
Yeah, I think so too, man. It's really important, just at the end of the day, walk away from it and be like, hey, we're all human beings. We all have differences of opinion. We all get along. Nobody hates each other. It's all just, in the end of the day, it's toys, it's collectibles, right? So that's kind of, I think, where we need to, you know, always sometimes take a step back and say, hey,
I was just going to say, take a step back
behind that, right? Like, it's, and ultimately at the end of the day, like, if you like something, that's fine. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Doesn't mean you have to like what I like. Like, I really like the sequel Star Wars films, right? I don't love Last Jedi, but I love the other two, right?
And that's perfectly good.
No one else has to love them but me. So,
right,
you know, there are people out there who love them too. So, and I'm fine with that. And I'm also fine with people who hate them. So,
right, and it's not fair to impose that judgment upon others and say, oh, well, you like this? Well, you know, why? That's silly. That's nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
enjoy it. I'm glad that people find enjoyment in varying things. Otherwise, again, like you said, it would be rather boring if we all loved everything. We all agreed.
If we were all the same, it wouldn't be very exciting.
Exactly.
So that's why I think collecting is great, man, because we live in pretty much the best time to collect ever, because there's almost something for everyone. And that's kind of part of the problem too, because that's, you know, why we have so much, because there is so many good things coming out. Like, all these companies that are dropping this heat right now. You know, Hot Toys is dropping amazing stuff. 3-0 does pretty good stuff. Like
Oh yeah.
So is dropping good stuff. Game Toys is dropping good stuff. Then the statue companies, you got Prime One and Infinity and J&D and then Queen Studios and you got XM.
It's overwhelming.
Sideshow and Iron Studios. Like, yeah.
Well, when you say it all like that really quick, yeah. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like,
you're like, whoa.
There's all those other companies that are making stuff too that people buy that I'm probably not naming at the moment. But yeah, man, like it's just think of all those companies that are making all that great stuff, right? That's how you get all this stuff that's in our houses right now.
Yes. And I think, you know, a lot of people out there are also doing that, right? Because we are in a community and people are picking up things that they like. And at some point, I feel it happens. Not everybody, because not everybody's comfortable with doing it, but those who are comfortable to kind of take that step and say, you know what? I've been collecting. I've been part of a community. I've been watching people. I consider myself fairly educated now, you know, in whatever this is, this collectible or, you know, thing that I'm into, and they want to maybe take that step, right? And they're like, maybe I'm going to start a channel, which is we see happen all the time, and that's awesome. That's super, and that's totally encouraged by my part. I think more content is great. There's plenty out there for everybody. Everybody has their opinions. But what advice do you think you could give somebody who's maybe considering doing that? You know, maybe something that you overlooked or lessons that you've learned on your own now.
Like in terms of creating content, you mean?
Yeah, like, okay, I'm going to start.
Right.
What do you know?
It's funny because I actually am planning a presentation on 𝐂𝐿's show for this exact thing, but I'll give some,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll give some brief hints real quick because to me, the hardest part, I always say this, the hardest part is starting. Starting anything new is always the hardest part, whether it be a channel, whether it be a new job, a promotion, you know, a new relationship, having a kid or buying a pet for the first time, right? It's all hard when you first start it, and then it gets progressively easier. So typically anyway. So yeah, there's a lot of collectors out there that have a great voice that want it to be heard, and they should explore that. No matter which realm you're in, collecting or otherwise, right? Find out what you're passionate about. If you're watching this stream, it's probably collectibles. So find your niche, right? I think that's the key thing too. What can make you unique? What can make you stand out in the crowd? Because there's a lot of people like that will, you know, say this figure's fantastic, and it's cool, right? And that's great. Like that figure probably is fantastic. But what else do you have to add to that conversation, right? I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, what are you going to add that's maybe different than the crowd? Like, I always use Aries as an example. Like, he talks about the market. He's very big into the market charts.
Oh, absolutely.
He talks about that a lot. That's a unique thing. Like, before,
I mean, he created the market chart.
So they have a unique thing that they were doing, right? So, and you know, everyone does a unique thing. Like, I think everyone has a unique voice. Let's put it that way. And I think finding your unique voice is the hard part. Then also just gear. I mean, start out with what you can. Like if you want to do live streams, if you want to start out with an iPhone, that's totally fine. Or a phone in general. Start out with your webcam on your laptop. That's totally fine. Like no one's gonna judge you. Yeah, for having like you don't have to have a Canon R6 to be a streamer.
I feel like a lot of people feel that way, right? They have this I have to go spend thousands of dollars on a setup right now when you're right. I mean, look, this is the best time in a lot of ways. Like we all have cell phones. We all have pretty good cameras on them. We know other people who do create content on their phones.
Right.
It's totally doable.
Yeah. Like for example, I will show you right now. There is another camera. Like there is a camera that I can use on my computer right now. Hello. But I can also, because I was into photography anyway, I can also use my Canon camera, my Canon EOS R, because that's something for sure that, you know, if you're into that stuff, you'll find uses for it. If you can find a reason to use that kind of stuff, then you can make it work for you. But you don't need it until you get to that point. Like if you want to start out and just buy it, if you have the funds, go for it. If you want to learn on the job, so to speak. But like I said, don't consider it a prerequisite. Like as long as you have any sort of microphone, you know, whether it even be your AirPods or your internal microphone on your laptop, you can make it work, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't want people to feel too much pressure to feel like they have to conform to something high end. Right.
Yeah. I had spoken to Brother Cousins about that as well, on a previous show. And he said, just do it. Just do it. Like, just start. Like, that's what you need to do, is just, if you're considering it, you just start. And it's not going to be, your first time's not going to be the best,
Right.
and that's okay. That's okay. Like you said, the more you do it, you get comfortable. You have to find your voice, right? That's I think the most important thing that you're mentioning there is finding who you are and what you can bring to whatever content it is that you want to create,
and just putting yourself out there. Because
that's
I
also
think it's very difficult to do something, like I said, for the first time. And like when I first started live streaming for the first time, it's nerve-wracking. I mean,
it is.
The first time you ever do a live stream, especially when you're running it, if you're on a panel, you can have a little more stability and foundation because you're not the one guiding the stream. But if you are hosting it, that can be kind of stressful, because I remember my first one I ever did, I was like, man, this is I feel nervous going in, right? Because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what your voice is yet on your own channel. Yeah, you can be on other streams and do this and that, but when you do your own, it's a little bit different. Like, how do I want to structure my own show?
Exactly. It's very difficult to be able to host a panel and engage with the chat and have engaging like you said, it's very in the beginning it's very tough, but I think you're right. The first thing you probably want to do is kind of just get your name out there, speak to people, get the feel, and just kind of ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions.
No, not at all. And like I said, like, putting yourself out there is the biggest thing. There's so many people out there that are doing this kind of stuff that, are really kind and genuine people and generous, that can really help with this stuff. Like, we all can't answer questions 24/7, but we'll try our best to kind of chip in and assist, right? So, and I try to even hop on other people's live streams as much as I can, but like I said, I try to find a lot of balance, right? I really do try to find a lot of balance and make sure that I'm, living a fulfilled life in multiple ways. So collecting is obviously a big part of it, but it's not the only part of it. An even bigger part of your life, that's totally fine. Everyone has that's totally reasonable to everyone to do how they want to do it, right? Everyone's unique. Everyone has a different thing, a formula that works for them.
You're right. And you need to have that, like I said, you're vastly different from the next person, and then that person's different from the next, and so on. So you have to, again, it's kind of what you were saying, like with the ingredients. If everybody's saying the same thing, then it's not, you have to find your own voice, essentially. You really do. And don't give up. If it's something you really want to do, pursue it. Like you were saying before, you feel like if you need to be in it, like you're in it, like you're all balls to the wall, full time, dedicated to it. If that's where you're wanting to take it, unless you want to be a little more casual with it, then that's fine. That's fine too. But you have to figure out where you want to be, right?
Right. I think that's the biggest thing, man. It really is. Figuring out where you want to be and what you want to do with your own voice. So
yes.
Yeah, man. And just figuring out where, there's multiple lanes that you can be in at once. It's not like necessarily driving where you have to be in the left lane or you have to be in the right lane, right?
Right.
You could essentially, in this case, be in multiple lanes. You don't have to do just Hot Toys reviews. You could do other things too, right? I don't want anyone to feel like they have to lock themselves into one lane and say,
well, yeah, I mean, look at what, I mean, you still do movie reviews, occasionally you play video games live, right?
Yeah.
Then you have your live streams, and you do, recently, statue like unboxings, things like that. So you have a variety. You're not just, like you said, in one lane.
Right. Yeah. I think and that's what I like, because, maybe for others, like they want to, there's always something to be said about the viewer knowing exactly what to expect from your content. So there is something to that.
That is true.
But for me, like, it's just a creative outlet. So I'll just post whatever I'm passionate about at the time. So it's all kind of related. It's movies, it's games, it's collectibles. It's all the same.
It's like a pop culture kind of umbrella, if you will.
yeah, that's kind of my lanes, so to speak. But if like Optical does tech reviews sometimes, like he'll review like tech items that he can use for whatever purpose, right? And that's definitely something that I think he enjoys too. So again, I think like I said, following, that's how you stay in it longer, I think. Because if you do one thing over and over and over, like kind of what happened with me with movie reviews, right? Like
Right.
one thing, hundreds of them, same kind of deal every time, right? So after a while, it starts to get kind of taxing because you're just like, it's monotonous after a while,
Yeah, you
right?
burn
Because
yourself out.
you're not challenging yourself anymore.
Yes. Well, that's interesting that he does that as well. A tech review is completely outside of this whatsoever, but because he enjoys it, you're gonna do it. So I understand what you're saying. Don't just stay in one thing if that's your topic. And I do get what you're saying too with content. Like somebody will come to your channel and be like, "Oh, I thought this guy talked about hot toys. What's he doing playing this video game that I have no interest in?" But that's
Right.
fine because that's not your if that's your objective, then yes, focus on one thing. If you're trying, you know what I mean. But if you're doing it because you just want to be a part of it and you want to start creating, then absolutely, I'm 100% with you. You do what makes you feel comfortable, what you enjoy. And if people enjoy you, they're gonna enjoy your content. And not everything's for everybody. You know that I think people lose sight of that. You know, just because one person is talking about this topic and the second person's talking about the exact same topic, people may not be into that for whatever reason. So it's okay. There's always a market there for you, but you have to stay. I think you have to stay consistent and enjoy above all else what you're doing. So I think that's important. And you know because you do that, we are content creators, and you are doing all this like you said with the statue unboxings and the games.
Yeah.
What do you have as far as your channel's concerned? Do you have any like goals that you're trying to achieve through the year, or try new things, or just kind of you're just having fun along the way and whatever happens kind of happens?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, whatever happens, happens. And just going on more live streams and doing more of my own content, that's always great. That's always the goal. But anyone knows that does this, that, you know, we do it as a side hustle, right? We do it as a hobby. Because most of us work, you know, full-time positions. So it's very difficult to balance that with YouTube. You know, there are a lot of people who do it really well and they just bust their ass all the time, right? So they're probably not doing much else. They're working and then they're working on YouTube. So that's pretty much it. And if you're willing to do that, you can go a very long way.
True.
You really can. So for me, it's just like I said, I always preach balance. But again, that's my take on it. But yeah, I mean, I do like the idea, like you said, of everyone kind of figuring out what works best for them. You know?
Yes, agreed. I
Because
really think
everyone's
so.
different. Yeah. The formula, it's not a math formula where it's the same on every problem or every time. It's different. There's a unique, it's going to take a unique formula for everyone to, find
Right.
joy in this, in content creation and collecting.
Well, and I
So,
think you need to probably, in my opinion, you want to play off your strengths too. Whatever your strengths are as a human being in life, your life experiences, or your core beliefs, or what are you good at? Like, for example, there's a lot of people out there that, got into this because they enjoyed taking photos. So
right.
like, wow, okay. I think, and I've seen some people that are great photographers that have maybe developed into taking toy photography now, because they already had a skill. So they work on their strengths, right? And if you're good at that, then you want to focus on that. And then kind of bring in some other outside things. Like for me, I was always doing editing work and multimedia things. So I thought, well, I already enjoy doing this. So why don't I use what I'm good at and apply it to my content creating, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely do. So, and that's what I kind of think is one of the biggest things. Like, again, finding your passion and seeing what you can do to bring it to life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's always good advice, right? I mean, there's so much in life that I think we chase after, that we're in the pursuit of, I don't know, like pleasure, excitement, whatever, right? So, and collecting is no different, but it's just how we do it, I think is the biggest thing.
Jedi crave not these things, right?
The Jedi, though, like according to Last Jedi, it's time for the Jedi to end, and then they don't end. So,
Yeah.
But
So,
I don't want to spoil too much, but Grogu.
all right. Well, shit, man. I think we should probably wrap then. It's been a good Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of insightful information, and got some real talk in there too, man. Some real good.
Always real talk, man.
Always real talk.
Keep it 100. Always.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't want to keep you any more than you have. So I do appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure everybody who's listening or watching, definitely appreciative. Do you so I mean, other than doing the live streams, that's just about what else you got going on? Or I mean, should I just, people who don't know, just to come check out your channel? That is WillFoxification. So
Yeah.
we can put a link here in the description of everything, and just that's what do they got to look forward to. If this is the first time listening or watching, what can you sell them on? Why should we come check you out, Will?
If this is your first time listening or watching, hello, nice to meet you. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to me for like an hour or however long we went on for. So yeah, my channel name is WillFoxification. So what I do, mostly live streams at this point. We do a live stream every Sunday called Collectors Mingle. What we talk about is, current topics in collecting. We talk about releases, statues, figures, pretty much everything in between. We talk about big picture topics like budgeting and payment plans and pre-ordering and, Hong Kong resellers versus, US retailers, things like that I always think are fun to discuss. So prototype versus final sculpt, things like that. So we do that kind of stuff. Then I do gaming live streams, which I might actually do one tonight, actually. So we'll see. And this probably won't air tonight, but it's gonna be fine. So I do those. We play Battlefront 2, we play Call of Duty. We'll probably play other stuff in the future. So that's the kind of stuff that we'll do. Gaming live streams are always fun, just a live chance to hang out. Then from there, I do movie reviews here and there. I haven't really done them lately, but I'm thinking about getting back into them more. And then I would also do collectible reviews, so statues. So like this Kratos, for example, and Atreus from Prime 1. Probably going to review that pretty soon.
So quite a lot going on.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, man, that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys can find something to enjoy on the channel. I always try to give something unique and fun and engaging. So hopefully you get that vibe that comes across to you. But yeah, man, thanks for having me. I think always a blast, man.
Hell yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure to have you on here. And, like I said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and go check out WillFoxification if you have not already. So until then, we will see you guys in the next video.
See ya.